Thank you all for gathering here this wonderful morning to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and to support the City of Tempe's 25th annual Dr. Martin Luther King's Diversity Awards. How very fortunate we are to live in this wonderful, diverse community of Tempe. My name is Hugo Tapia, and I serve as the chair of the Human Relations Commission. Today, we meet for the 25th year to honor our city's great leaders and exemplify the spirit of Dr. King. This day, this event, this 25-year tradition is a vitally important celebration. It may be even more vital in the political and social environment in which we find ourselves today. For we stand here together, unified as a community of neighbors, families, and friends. We do so in recognition of the great works of those leaders like Dr. King, whose tireless dedication and love for our fellow human beings, and love for freedom brought forth the most sweeping and powerful social reform in the history of our nation. Dr. King is often described as being progressive, strong, and trailblazing. But just as importantly, he was caring and compassionate. He worked tirelessly and courageously to bring us together as communities and as a nation during such a tumultuous time. Tempe, our wonderful, inclusive city, embodies and continues to strive to more perfectly embody many of these same characteristics. You often hear Tempe being described as a progressive, strong, and trailblazing city. But as with Dr. King, we would argue that perhaps the most important quality about Tempe is its compassion and care for all of our residents. And in celebrating our city's wonderful diversity. And that is the passion that drives our success as a community and as a city. And with that, I'm proud and honored to turn the program to our mayor, Mayor Corey Woods.
Good morning, and welcome to the Tempe's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Diversity Awards Breakfast. These awards are the hallmark of our city's goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want to talk about something very quickly before I continue going. Someone who was a real pillar in our community who we unfortunately lost just very recently. My good friend and a friend of so many people in this room, the Honorable Mel Hanna. Mel was a true trailblazer. He was a member of the Flagstaff City Council. He was a tireless supporter of education statewide, but also in our community. Mel chaired 4 overrides for the Tempe Union High School District. He was on the Commission for African American Affairs for the state of Arizona, serving with our good friend over there, Commissioner Kim D'Artez. I was going to say, personally, on a very human level, I remember Mel when I was first getting involved in the political world back here, and at one point found myself looking for a job. And Mel was still at that point working with the Greater Phoenix Urban League. And he sat down with me for not just hours, but days, going through job postings, making contacts on my behalf. I wasn't a council member at this point. I was just a person, frankly, looking for gainful employment in the Greater Phoenix area. And this man, even though he didn't have to, and given his stature in the community, spent so much time with me until I actually did find something. And I'm going to tell you right now, I and so many people in this room today would not be here, and I would not be standing up here if not for the courage and the work of the Honorable Mel Hanna. So earlier this year, the HRC heard presentations by the Tempe Police Department and Cease, Arizona, about the horrible crime of human trafficking. After learning about free training available to municipalities, the HRC recommended that Tempe strive to become a Cease city. Starting this week, we are implementing the Cease City training for all of our employees. That's more than 1,600 people who can watch out for human trafficking and help put an end to it right here in the city of Tempe. Once again, thank you to the Human Relations Commission for bringing this matter to our attention. This morning, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. I'm proud of the progress we've made since these awards started and of the work that we continue to do. During these last 25 years, we have crafted a non-discrimination ordinance, have continued to add protections to it, such as the Crown Act. And I've got to stop really quickly here and give a shout out to Miss Candace Lindsay, who's here in the audience with us. Ms. Lindsay brought that to myself and Vice Mayor Jennifer Adams. We were really happy that her and another Tempe resident, Janet Hamlin, brought this to our attention. As we've always talked about, the non-discrimination ordinance is not something that you simply pass and put in a drawer somewhere. It is a living, breathing document, and as you learn more and get more information, you constantly strive to update that document to make sure that everyone here in our city feels protected and able to live their life to the fullest. And the Crown Act that I talked about that Ms. Lindsay and Ms. Hamlin brought here prohibits discrimination against people for their hairstyles. So once again, give her a very big round of applause. For 8 years in a row, we have scored a perfect 100% on the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index. This means we are recognized nationally as a city that advances equality in every service, program, and policy. We want to celebrate everyone. And last year, as we know, Juneteenth became a national holiday. Our community has embraced 2 celebrations, and I want to say very quickly as well, the first mayor to formally make Juneteenth a holiday and give our employees the day off was not myself, but was Mayor Mark Mitchell. We have 2 celebrations for Juneteenth in this town, and I'll tell you right now, both of them are amazing. I have people who come from all throughout the valley and say, you guys sure know how to put on an event. And I'm going to tell you, they're not put on specifically by the city. We try to help, but the reality is the first celebration is through our African American Advisory Committee that does so much exceptional work. And there was a second celebration that started for the first time last year that was produced by the Downtown Tempe Authority that took place at Centerpoint, right in the heart of our downtown. So we look forward to both of these celebrations again and want to thank the Tempe Black Employee Alliance for the role that they've also played with helping us in advancing the cause of Juneteenth. So in just the last year, we also added a new Dia de los Muertos event with the Mexican Consulate and a new community menorah lighting celebration with ASU Chabad and the Downtown Tempe Authority. And we brought back in-person versions of the Tempe Tardeada as well as today's MLK breakfast. Sharing foods, music, and traditions makes our city richer, more reflective of the people in our community, and more harmonious. Our experiences lead to understanding. So as Dr. King once said, the time is always right to do what's right. So Drew Sullivan, who is a longtime Tempe resident, discovered that some Tempe parks and streets were named after residents who had ties to the 1920s era KKK chapter. After additional research by the Arizona Heritage Center and our Tempe History Museum staff, we took action and are in the process of renaming these places. And once again, to talk about the leadership in this city, because I get to get up here and give speeches all the time, and I get to give all the media, but that working group is actually led by our city manager, Andrew Ching. So I wanted to thank him very publicly. So all of those new names will be announced soon, and we can truly say that these new names reflect our city's values. We will always continue to elevate what brings all of us together. But there is still work to do. Tomorrow, I'll be visiting a family that recently had a racist sign placed in their front yard in Tempe by a group of local teens. The group could be captured on scene on footage taken on an outdoor camera where they placed a for sale sign with offensive writing and symbolism in their front yard. This incident is being treated very seriously. And I want to thank openly here a few people. Our new Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Belisa Humes. I want to thank our city advisor here as well, Mr. Roy Tatum. And of course, Chief Jeff Glover. This incident is being investigated actively by the Tempe Police Hate Crimes Unit in assistance with Dr. Humes and with Mr. Tatum. So I wanted to thank all of them for their involvement in making sure that we take this incident very seriously and we continue to let people know that there is no place for hate in our community. We are truly in Tempe an inclusive and caring place. This incident does not define our community. It's not who we are. We will continue to advocate for respect, inclusion, equity, and appreciation of each other in our schools, in our workplaces, and throughout our city. We will continue to listen, to find new ways to bring about equity, and to celebrate all of the fantastic people who make a difference in our community. In Tempe, this work happens every day, all year round. It's why we created our diversity office back in 2002, to ensure our commitment translates to actions and that diversity and inclusion remain a central part of how we do business in Tempe. While the diversity office was established 20 years ago, and I want to stop for a second too and also thank our Chief Deputy City Manager, Rosa Nchowski, who was our first diversity director. Ginny Belusik, who has done so much exceptional work in this city for over 30 years. And of course, Dr. McMillan Humes, who was recently hired as our new Chief Diversity Officer. So economic equality was a huge and vital part of Dr. King's teachings. Today, only 11% of our country's businesses are owned by people of color. Entrepreneurship is one way that people can create financial prosperity for themselves and for their families. Recognizing that gap, the city of Tempe, along with Congressman Greg Stanton, created an $800,000 fund to provide as much as $25,000 stipends to Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses. They can use this money for office rent, supplies, tools, or anything that they need to make themselves successful. And we are so proud to have them here. But helping people prosper is only one benefit of this program. Investing in Tempe's entrepreneurs is a way of investing in our city's future economic growth. We all benefit from new products and services, new ideas, and possibly even new jobs. These businesses were recently selected by representatives of Tempe's Economic Development Department, Fabric Tempe, the Tempe Chamber of Commerce, Hustle Phoenix, the Pacific Southwest Minority Supplier Development Council, and Rail CDC. I'd like to thank all of them for their time and for their critical support of this program. Congressman Stanton and I are really proud to announce the names of these recipients of these grants right here today. And so here those companies are: the Molecules Company, Big Red Hot Sauce, White Hawk Industries, Simply Wick, Alpha Manufacturing Solutions, Black Russian Label, Pastiche, La Femme, RicoFit, Lamarck Cole LLC, Heights Apparel, Tech Noir Candy, We Kings Bro Apparel, Miss Martha's Caribbean Kitchen, Our Spa and Wellness Center, Sugar Puffs, Your Life, Conscious Gear, Pure Juice and Joy Smoothie and Juice. All right, they're in the house today. I like it. Satiate, Skate 48, OXDX, Midge Chocolate, Gold Star Shea Butter. And let me tell you, I keep shea butter in my car at all times. So if any of you just as chance saw the chief and I having a conversation in the parking lot, he's laughing right now because he knows what I'm going to say. Right before, if you see us talking by our car, we were not having a conversation about high-level police activity or a whole bunch of other things. We were talking about the importance of keeping shea butter in your car at all times. He is never going to talk to me after this is over now. Next up, Sassy Cones, RPH Beauty, Fresh Peak, and Salad Sister. Give them all a big round of applause. So Congressman Stanton couldn't be here with us today, but he did send in a video. I'd like to see if we'd all turn our attention to the screens and take a moment to watch what Congressman Stanton said.
I'm Congressman Greg Stanton. I so wish I could be there today with you to celebrate this important announcement. Small businesses, they're more than the engines of our economic progress and recovery. They are the heart and soul of our community here in Tempe. So when Mayor Woods and the city reached out and asked for my help getting federal funding to support promising entrepreneurs, I got right to work. And I'm proud that with their partnership, we were able to secure $500,000 to support this critical program. We want to help the next generation of micro manufacturers realize their potential and build great products with good mentorship, access to capital and networks, equipment, and raw materials. And I'm excited to see what each of the 27 unique businesses and entrepreneurs here today grow into and continue to work with local leaders to support small businesses and boost domestic manufacturing right here in Arizona. Best of luck to all of the wonderful entrepreneurs receiving this support.
I just want to say the reality is we can't do everything here as a city government without the support of other elected leadership, from our school district governing board members to our state legislators, and of course our federal representation. Congressman Stanton has been incredible in securing extremely critical funds in support of our BIPOC businesses and so many other things that have benefited the city of Tempe. So please give him another big round of applause. So in support of our BIPOC business owners, please take a moment to meet these incredible entrepreneurs and see if there are ways that you can work together or make sure that you use their products. We will continue to work towards economic, environmental, and social equality. Our work isn't something to celebrate one day a year. It's something we strive for each and every day. And I look forward to visiting the companies that earned our manufacturing grants, to visiting our renamed parks, and celebrating our city at cultural festivals such as the Tempe Tardeada and the Regional Unity Walk. Now, I am honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Lois Brown. Dr. Lois Brown is Foundation Professor of English at Arizona State University and Director of the ASU Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. A graduate of Duke University, my cousin went to Duke too, and of Boston College, she is a public historian, a published scholar, and an award-winning teacher of African American literature, history, and culture, whose groundbreaking research reshapes our understanding of race, class, gender, faith, and place here in America. The ASU Center that she directs is the only entity at ASU and in the state of Arizona that positions race and democracy in direct relation with each other. Dr. Brown is committed to programming, partnerships, and outreach that enable purposeful collaboration, impactful research, and inspired action related to race and democracy. So please, once again, help me in welcoming our keynote speaker today, Dr. Lois Brown.
Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be here. Mayor Woods, thank you for the warm welcome. We are of a tribe, declares our inaugural Arizona Poet Laureate Alberto Rios, an ASU professor, in the title of an ethereal poem that leads into the following lines. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. Hoping, someday. These are words of expectation, of anticipation, and of positivity. Yet we might also agree that the words hoping and someday bear witness to absence, to lack, to what has not been realized, and to what can be the unsettling tyranny of time and waiting. And what about that sequence? Plant first, dream next? Professor Rios' poem gives us the opportunity to think about how it is that we move through the world and the steps we take in order to fuel us as we wait and we hope. Waiting and hoping were two states of existence that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. never hesitated to address. He did so very deliberately in his April 1963 memorable document, Letter from Birmingham Jail, and in so many of his other speeches and writings. And I quote, "For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ears of every Negro with a piercing familiarity. This wait," he declared, "has almost always meant never. It has been a tranquilizing thalidomide, relieving the emotional stress for a moment, only to give birth to an ill-formed infant of frustration. We must come to see with the distinguished jurist of yesterday that justice too long delayed is justice denied. There comes a time," he intoned, "when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to be pushed into an abyss of injustice where they experience the bleakness of corroding despair. I hope," he said pointedly, "you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience." Many of us know Dr. King's impassioned letter from Birmingham Jail, written on April 16, 1963, while he, as he described his incarceration, was, quote, "alone for days in the dull monotony of a narrow jail cell." He composed the letter just 4 days after he saw the public statement issued by a multi-faith group of 8 clergymen, which included leading ministers from the Methodist, Episcopal, Presbyterian, Jewish, and Baptist faiths. The public statement conveyed their, quote, "concern and caution about African American nonviolent protest of segregation in Birmingham. And it also voiced their desire to, quote, "commend the community as a whole and the local media and law enforcement in particular on the calm manner in which these demonstrations have been handled, end quote. Dr. King first addressed the ground on which he and the group of 8 fellow ministers stood. Birmingham, he wrote unapologetically, was, quote, probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. It had an ugly record of police brutality known in every section of this country. It was known for the unjust treatment of Negroes in the courts, and that was a notorious reality. And in Birmingham, he reminded them, there have been more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches than in any other city in this nation. What seeds might be planted in that ground? What dreams in the sky above such a place? Reverend King also did not hesitate to challenge the group of 8's assertion about, quote, calm responses to African American courage and agency either. He listed in almost breathless fashion the injuries sustained from angry, violent dogs biting unarmed, nonviolent Negroes, the pushing and cursing of old Negro women and young Negro girls, the slapping and kicking of old Negro men and young boys, and other hurts. Quite pointedly, he told the 8 clergy, quote, I wish you had commended the Negro demonstrators of Birmingham for their sublime courage, their willingness to suffer, and their amazing discipline in the midst of the most inhuman provocation. And then, as if to comfort the masses working towards equal justice, civil rights, and true democracy, Dr. King laid down a prophecy. One day, he declared, the South will recognize its real heroes. Until then, though, we might wonder what or even whether the hundreds of courageous and wounded, dedicated and traumatized individuals dedicated to the full and robust implementation of civil rights and equal opportunities, the eradication of prejudice, and the continued legalization of intolerance, whether they imagined they were planting seeds or ever going to approach fertile ground for their families, their communities, and their futures. What dreams did they send upward to the skies above places like the Birmingham jail, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the murky Tallahatchie River, or the Lorraine Hotel? Here in Arizona, we are blessed to have been one of the places in which Dr. King spent time. He exhorted and inspired individuals here in the state that was at the time known to many as, quote, the Mississippi of the West, because of its segregationist policies, housing discrimination, unequal educational opportunities, Klan activity, racial inequity, and all-around intolerance. Reverend King delivered 2 speeches in June of 1964, the first in the afternoon at the long-standing Tanner AME Church on Jefferson Street, and at 8 p.m. that same day here in Tempe at ASU's Goodwin Stadium before an audience of some 8,000 people. Dr. King shared the stage with Phoenix's own Lincoln Ragsdale, the former Tuskegee Airman and successful businessman. He and his accomplished wife, the educator Eleanor Ragsdale, were unstoppable forces for good here, and they advocated tirelessly for social and equal justice across our state. Dr. King was welcomed and introduced that evening by ASU President Homer Durham. In one of those lovely and unexpected moments of encouraging serendipity, I'm also moved to share today that it means so much to me that the ASU Center for the Study of Race and Democracy that I have the privilege of directing has offices, just recently relocated, to Durham Hall, the Tempe campus building named after that president. Here in Tempe, Dr. King discussed what he called, quote, the myth of time. You've heard this myth, he told the audience. The individuals who believe in it say to the Negro and to his allies in the white community, wait, slow up for a while. You ought to cool off. Only time can solve the problem. And so they say you ought to be nice and patient and just continue to pray. Pray. And in 100 or maybe 200 years, this problem will work itself out. And then Dr. King made one of his legendary turns towards time and space, hurtling himself and his audience over and above the obstacles of racism, prejudice, apathy, cowardice, violence, and threat. Somewhere, he declared, we must come to see that time is neutral. It can be used either constructively or destructively. And I am convinced, he mused, that the forces of ill will in our nation have used time much more effectively than the forces of goodwill. Somewhere along the way, he continued, we must see that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. And so we must recognize the urgency of the moment, he said. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to get rid of segregation and discrimination in our nation. Now is the time to make democracy a reality. Now is the time to solve this problem. Now is the time. In truth, it has been the time for so many generations before us. Given what we see that still remains unfinished, unprotected, not yet implemented, or that is under renewed threat when it comes to justice, inclusion, education, freedom, identity, housing, health, sexuality, employment, living wages, and access to all the pathways and possibilities that can make eyes shine with promise and confidence, it is clear that now continues to be an overdue and still emerging premise and state of play. Today, we gather here because of the courage and the fortitude of Dr. King, his wife, civil rights leader Coretta Scott King, the trailblazers and the foot soldiers, the unsung sheroes and heroes, the survivors and the victims who have shaped our understanding of what this nation has been and can be. We have a precious and urgent opportunity to decide the nature and the impact of our own now. One of the lessons that today's recipients of the MLK Diversity Awards are teaching us is that it is essential to do more, to expect more, and to anticipate the places of vital and positive impact and lasting and inspiring transformation. They each have reached down, up, around, and out within themselves and alongside each other to ensure that justice is fueled, encouraged, and nurtured by kindness, thoughtfulness, resources, faith, intellect, community, and gathering places. None of those things are accidental. Indeed, each of them does represent a seed planted, tended, returned to, talked to, nurtured, and watered. Roots down, blossoms and tendrils reaching upward in order to bear good fruit. Dr. King used his Tempe speech to reiterate one of his most consistent beliefs about the impact of science and technology that, according to him, quote, have made of this world a neighborhood. All life is interrelated, he told the thousands gathered that night, and we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single web of destiny, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly for some strange reason. He continued, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This, proclaimed Dr. King, is the interrelated structure. Those words of Dr. King echo in so many languages and genres. They also echo across and through faiths and the efforts of those committed to the moral work of advocacy and leadership. Last year, the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy partnered with Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church of Phoenix, Temple Beth Israel of Scottsdale, and the Arizona Jewish Historical Society to host a screening and discussion of a new documentary, the screening of Shared Legacies, the African American Jewish Civil Rights Alliance, directed by Dr. Shari Rogers, included discussions of the moment when 17 rabbis responded to both the example and the call of Dr. King. They were motivated to act because he requested that they, quote, join with him in a creative witness to our joint convictions of equality and racial justice. So, the delegation of rabbis went to St. Augustine, Florida in June of '64. Their nonviolent civil rights mission in the nation's oldest settled city was to pray in an integrated group outside a restaurant that discriminated against African Americans. And it also meant that they were going to go inside that restaurant and sit with 3 young people of color who were waiting to be served. All 17 rabbis were arrested. They were taken to St. John's County Jail. And it was in that jail that they penned a collective letter, one that took the baton that Dr. King extended from the Birmingham jail a year earlier. And here is a portion of what that letter said. We came to St. Augustine because we could not stay away. We could not say no to Martin Luther King, whom we always respected and admired, and whose loyal friends we hope we shall be in the days to come. We could not pass by the opportunity to achieve a moral goal by moral means, a rare modern privilege, which has been the glory of the nonviolent struggle for civil rights. We came because we could not stand quietly by our brother's blood. We had done that too many times before. We have been vocal in our exhortation of others, but the idleness of our hands often revealed an inner silence. Silence at a time when silence has become the unpardonable sin of our time. We came in the hope that the God of all of us would accept our small involvement as partial atonement for the many things we wish we had done before and often. We came as Jews who remember the millions of faceless people who stood quietly watching the smoke rise from Hitler's crematoria. We came because we know that second only to silence, the greatest danger to man is loss of faith in man's capacity to act. The rabbis honored Dr. King's ironclad belief that all are, as he said, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. That letter from St. John's County Jail is another enduring thread in that expansive quilt that bears witness to our shared local and global histories, our prospects and our ambitions. As I close my remarks this morning, I want to do so again in the company of Alberto Rios, an individual whom I'm so humbled and honored to call colleague and friend, and who serves with Dr. Nadir on our advisory board. In this poem entitled A House Called Tomorrow, Professor Rios maps a genealogy of hope and connection that links our present moment to that stirring moment when Dr. King spoke here in Tempe some 58 years ago. Here are the opening lines of that work. You are not 15 or 12 or 17. You are 100 and wild centuries, and 15 bringing with you in every breath and in every step everyone who has come before you, all the yous that you have been, the mothers of your mother, the fathers of your father. If someone in your family tree was trouble, 100 were not. The bad do not win, not finally. No matter how loud they are, we simply would not be here if that were so. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone. Professor Rios reminds us too that, quote, what we bring finally into the new day every day is ourselves. And that's all we need, he writes, to start. That's everything we require to keep going. The final lines of this poem counsel each of us to, quote, look back only for as long as you must, then go forward into the history you will make. Be good, then better. Write books, cure disease, make us proud, make yourself proud. And those who came before you, when you hear thunder, hear it as their applause. What is the house that you and I will call tomorrow? What history will we go forward to make? How will each of us contend with the inner silence that we do carry? What and with whom will we transform the idleness of our hands and become forces for good and doers of necessary and uplifting actions? Our work, it would seem, truly is to hold ourselves and each other accountable. We must claim the now. We must live into the now. We must take time to understand how we have been shaped, molded, and prepared by the past. We must, in honor of those who have come before us and those who have yet to arrive, we must commit ourselves to intentional, brave, and beautiful acts of planting many seeds in acres of ground and dreams across all the sky that we behold. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for your inspirational words. What a wonderful morning we've had so far. It is time to present our Diversity Awards. The MLK Diversity Awards were created by the Tempe Human Relations Commission to honor those individuals, organizations, and businesses in Tempe that have demonstrated a commitment to celebrating diversity and inclusion in Tempe. Today, we will present the 25th Annual Diversity Awards to individuals and groups in 5 different categories. Our first category today is individual adult. The first recipient in the individual adult category is Holly Herman. Holly Herman leads the University Presbyterian Church's efforts to help refugee families. Holly created teams of people, many with bilingual skills, to cook meals, gather clothing and supplies, provide showers and laundry needs, arrange transportation, and even take the time to be a welcoming friend. When 2 Iranian refugee families needed a temporary place to live, she helped transform Sunday school classrooms into private residences. With the addition of our 3rd family, UPC, with Holly's leadership, has committed time and resources to support the 7 refugees as they navigate their legal situation, learn about the culture and study the language and prepare for their future employment. Please join us in celebrating Holly Herman. Our next individual adult winner is Carol Stewart. Carol Stewart has been an integral part of the African American Advisory Committee. As the youth chair, she has demonstrated to the children and their families the importance of Black history and the Black History Month Activity Day. Her extensive teaching background enabled Carol to incorporate factual information not only with her booklets, but through her displays, crafts, and games. The video link below will give you a full understanding of the scope of knowledge she brought to the community regarding African American historical culture. Please join us in congratulating Carol Stewart. Our next category honors the next generation of leaders, our individual youth. Our first awardee in the individual youth category is Maria Angela Bernal Martinez. Maria Angela Bernal Martinez is a peer leader with the youth organization Peer Solutions at Tempe High School. Peer leaders help end violence through education, advocacy, and community engagement throughout their school and the community. Please join us in congratulating Maria Angela Bernal Martinez. Our next individual youth winner is Ron Ragland. As president of Desert Vista High School's Black Student Union, Ron Ragland has demonstrated his commitment to improving diversity. He has volunteered for numerous social causes, delivered public speeches on issues impacting minorities, and led voter drives. Please join us in congratulating Ron Ragland. Our next award is in the Community Organization category. This Community Organization Award belongs to Tempe Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. For 50 years, Tempe Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority has provided information and services to Tempe's youth and BIPOC communities. They offer programming to build self-esteem, support academic success, and prepare girls ages 11 to 18 to be community leaders. They also partner with the National Council of Negro Women and their network of national and local partners to ensure accurate information is shared about vaccines. Please join us in congratulating Tempe Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Our next award category is Educational Organization. This MLK Diversity Award goes to Kyrene de las Manitas Innovation Academy, No Place for Hate Club. The Kyrene de las Manitas Innovation Academy, No Place for Hate Club, puts students in charge of creating a movement for good change. Club leaders polled students and discovered that nearly half of them did not believe the books in their classrooms represented their identities. The club held a book drive to collect books that fulfilled students' requests and secure grant funding that paid for a complete diversity library for each Manitas classroom, and started diversity libraries at the 3 other No Place for Hate schools in Kyrene. Please join us in congratulating Kyrene de las Manitas Innovation Academy, No Place for Hate Club. Our final MLK Diversity Award category is Business Organization. This award recipient is Brick Road Coffee. Brick Road Coffee hosts many LGBTQA-friendly events every week, including book clubs, movie nights, open mic nights, free HIV testing, game nights, and last June, the coffee shop hosted a reproductive rights gathering that gave participants a safe place to come together, share their stories, and support one another. Please join me in congratulating the Brick Road Coffee. One final congratulations to all of our 2023 MLK Diversity Awards winners. At this time, let's watch an amazing video produced by our Tempe 11.
Welcome to Tempe.
Welcome to Tempe.
Welcome to Tempe. Welcome to Tempe.
Welcome to Tempe.
Welcome to Tempe.
Welcome to Tempe.
Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on. In these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be, we have an opportunity to make America a better nation.
And of course, we would like to thank each and every one of you for being here today and showing your unfaltering support. Your presence is in itself a demonstration of your commitment to diversity and inclusion in our city.